Hello, BookTube. We recently kicked around that old chestnut of a subject here on this little corner of BookTube. That old chestnut of a subject being ebooks versus paper books, the pros and cons of each, where people's preferences are. And I heard a lot in email from a lot of you on that subject. I love that. I asked for it. Tell me, please, tell me all your stories. And if you are in love with e-reading, don't just send me an email with your story. Send me an email with a picture of the tech that you use. I definitely want to know what you're reading on. I made it clear in the course of that discussion that I love e-reading, absolutely love it. I think there is no way to say that it is simply it is a better way of reading. It might not be your preference, but it takes all the shortcomings of reading a print and paper, a bound book, and removes them, and offers precious few shortcomings of its own. And I got the impression from emails and conversations on Vox with people that maybe I was coming across in that discussion as anti-paper books, which would be a little bit odd considering how many paper books I have here at Hyde Cottage. And then today, another BookTube channel, great BookTube channel, Mystery and Mayhem. I'll leave a link to his channel down below. You should all go and subscribe. He recently gave a vote of thanks on his channel that he passed 150 subscribers. Imagine how he'd feel passing 200 or 250 subscribers. Wouldn't that be nice? Walls and walls of lovingly cared for mass market paperbacks behind him. The bookcase was behind him with all those mass market paperbacks. I don't know of an equivalent. Most people on BookTube, and most people off BookTube, do exactly what I do with mass market paperbacks, which is stack them sideways and double and triple stack them, because they do accumulate. But his channels are lovely. his videos are great anyway. And in a recent video of his, he mentions this brouhaha, this dust up about people coming down on team ebook versus team paperbook, and then devotes a video to paper books, physical print books, that he would never give up, that are treasured objects of his. And I viewed that as a perfect opportunity to stress the fact that I don't hate print and paper books. I have too many of them. Do we have bean activity back there? Yes, we do. What you doing, baby? You're in a blast of sunlight this morning, huh? You are. I don't view print and paper books as anywhere near as hospitable as ebooks. They aren't as hospitable, they aren't as amenable, they aren't as adjustable, they aren't as storable, they aren't as searchable, they aren't any of those things. But I do still love them, of course. I spent most of my reading life with them. And I thought it was a great idea for a video. I hope that a lot of the rest of you follow up on this and show what he shows in that video are a few print and paper books that he wouldn't want to do without, that have real meaning for him or that he loves in one way or another. And I assembled a few myself to do the same thing. Like, for instance, this. This is an old Magnum Easy Eye edition. That's what these things were called. They were very poorly made mass market paperbacks of Common Domain classics. And this one, of course, is Dracula. It belonged to Carrie Holton. I don't know if Carrie Holton is still alive. She wrote her name in pen on the cover of this book. And the Magnum Easy Eyes were numbered. This was number 99. I used to love these things. I used to have a whole bunch of them. Every once in a while in my bookish life, I will toy with the idea of collecting something. I'm looking for those. And for a long time, Magnum Easy Eyes were on that list, even though it's less justifiable than most collecting, because the Magnum Easy Eye editions are really bad. They're really poorly made. They don't have anything in the way of introductions or notes, of course, but they're also poorly made. The cover, so the front, back, and spine, that will pop off the text block almost every time in a Magnum Easy Eye. I've almost never had an example where that wasn't true. I think that might be why they never did Moby Dick. I don't think they ever did Moby Dick, because it would happen coming off the printing press. You wouldn't even have to wait for a reader to hold it. It would fall apart just as it was. But they did a lot of other things, a lot of them, and I had lots and lots of them, and really loved them at the time. But I've since come to to make peace with the fact that I'm a little rough on my books. And these things can't handle it. But I kept the Magnum Easy Eye Dracula. With Bela Lugosi on the cover there. I kept this, and I would keep it. I have, I don't know, probably 10 editions of Dracula, or probably 2 or 3 in this camera angle. But I would never get rid of this thing. I've read Dracula in this mass market paperback many, many times. For some reason, the Dracula Magnum Easy Eye holds up, whereas none of the others I have do. Then we get to Shakespeare, of course. I have, I think, 2 or 3 collected Shakespeares. There might be one visible in this. Oh, no, well, I don't want to show too much of the sunlight blasting the books, so that the librarians out there don't have a coronary. But when it comes to any author that has a collected volume or something like that, or even an individual book like this, like a digital copy of Dracula, there's always going to be one version of that in print and paper format that you really just like more than any others. It's not often defensible. It doesn't have to be defensible. And when it comes to collected Shakespeare, I have one of those. This is from the old Running Press, and this is the big trade paperback that they did of the collected works of Shakespeare. And when I originally saw this out in the wild, I loved how the letters are so economically used there. It's everything that Shakespeare wrote. There's very little in the way of commentary or critical apparatus at all. It's just a big, fat trade paperback. I have filled it with appropriate book reviews. I have bookmarks all over here. And the acid test for something like this is that when I get a yen to read a work of Shakespeare, in a print book, I go to this. I go to this volume instead of the other collected Shakespeares that I have. I go to this one. And it has managed to hold up. I reinforced it with clear plastic packing tape, because this is just a trade paperback. I would really like to find another trade paperback of this. I almost never see them in the wild. But I always worry that the next time I reread, The Tempest or something, this thing's just going to fall apart. And I would feel bereft if that happened. So this definitely counts for, Mystery and Mayhem was talking about print and paper books that are treasured objects for you on their own, apart from their subject matter, apart from their actual contents. This is definitely a case of that, and I have no idea why. I have no idea why this might just be the heft of it in the hand. It feels perfect as just a book. But I would feel at a loss if I didn't have that. Then we have another mass market paperback. This I love because I have, of course, electronic copies of everything that I'm showing you. So reading these things is not a problem. But sometimes the book itself becomes a treasured object. This thing was from, I've shown you this many, many times before on this channel, 1976. And that's Star Trek: The New Voyages, edited by Sondra Marshak and Myrna Culbreth, with original artwork on the cover there. These are new adventures of James Kirk's Enterprise. And this was done when there was no other Star Trek, and when there was precious little Star Trek in book form. And most of it was not new. Most of it was James Blish adapting screenplays. So you already knew what was going to happen. It wasn't new adventures. The only new adventures you could find back when this came out were Star Trek fanzines of one kind or another. I subscribed, if you want to call it that. It was a very woolly process, but I subscribed to a whole bunch of those. Send 75 cents, and a good mailing address, send $1.50 and a self-addressed stamped envelope, that sort of thing. Also submit. If you want, you can submit to us in Tuscaloosa or, Sandusky, Ohio or whatever. You can send a dot matrix, a mimeograph print off of your story, and we'll consider it. For a long time, that was where you went to get new Star Trek. You certainly didn't get it in a book. And then this came out. And I loved this thing for the whole course of a late summer and early autumn. I loved it. Lived in these stories. Just lived in it. Picked them apart in my mind. Is this consistent with this line in this particular episode or that line in that particular episode? I'm not saying that anything in here is particularly good, but talk about sentimental value. This has sentimental value that an e-copy could never have. It could never equal that. So I've managed to be very careful with this and keep it, although I have doubles. Then the next example is pure egotism. And given the nature of this channel, you should be grateful that it's only one example that's pure egotism. One other reason why I would keep a print and paper book and maybe prefer it over its electronic equivalent has to do with my profession. I am a book critic. And over the decades, I have been blurbed on books. There are two ways for you to be blurbed on a book. Either the publisher can contact you ahead of time and say, we'd like to send you an advanced copy of this book, and if you'd like to give us a blurb for it, so then please do, and here's who you would contact to do that and whatnot, and if we can use it, we will. And then you get an advanced copy of the book, you get a commission to write about it somewhere, you write a review, and the publicist notices the review, likes it, prizes out a line or a paragraph, and puts that line or paragraph as an excerpt on the paperback. Those are the two ways that you can get on a book when it comes out in some new edition, whether it's another edition of the original or whether it's a paperback reprint. And of course, I'm not one of those book critics who makes a religious point of keeping a copy of every book on which I am blurbed. I'm not. I know a couple of critics who do that. And in addition to the fact that would be very, very impractical, because I've been blurbed on a lot of books, I've always never liked something about that. Feels just sort of wheedling, just sort of insecure. It feels too much like, a grade school kid keeping trophies. That's something like that. Something about that has never appealed to me. I will keep a book only because I am blurbed on it, rather than because I would otherwise keep the book. If the blurb itself has special meaning, if I'm on a page with a bunch of friends, and I'm looking at that page and I'm thinking, what about 25 years ago? Did any of us ever think this would happen? Then maybe yes. Or if the presence of the blurb on a particular book means a lot to me. And I picked an example of that, the example that all of you, the ones of you who tease me about being a raving egomaniac, love to cite the most, which is that in addition to being blurbed on a whole bunch of books, I'm also blurbed on the Bible. I'm blurbed on the Bible. This is the Norton Critical King James Bible. This is, they did the Norton Critical in 2 volumes, the New Testament and Apocrypha in 1 volume, the Old Testament in the other. It's absolutely superb. And I said that about it before I was blurbed on it. The original versions of these were brown. And then Norton redid their physical presentation. And when they did a version of this, these are really popular with schools because you get the original text and a ton of essays in the back. So this version of the King James Bible is in a lot of schools. A lot of other King James versions are. A lot of other Norton Critical editions are. And I'm blurbed on the back of this. You have Jack Miles, you have Robert Alter, but you also have me on the back there. And that was so tremendous. It was so tremendous to be on a Norton Critical edition that I know is being printed by the thousands for school kids. That I would definitely keep this. I'm not sure if the electronic version of this even has blurbs. I bet it doesn't. That's back cover copy. I don't think that would be on an electronic text. And that's a thrill. I no doubt about it. That is a thrill, especially since, when it comes to book blurbs, often the publicists will be hunting around for venues rather than for names. They'll be looking around. They want to build a long reference sheet in the back of the paperback of the highest name recognition venues. So it won't matter so much who you are. It'll matter that you placed your review in the Washington Post or the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times. And then sometimes not. Sometimes the publicist or the publisher is looking for the people. And so an extra benefit here, an extra thing that makes me love this, is that it's Open Letters Monthly, which was an online literary journal for which I was the managing editor. And it adds an extra bit of joy when it's your own venue, where the person isn't shopping for venues, they're shopping for you. I am hoping, fingers crossed, I am hoping that I am going to get in addition to being an editor on Open Letters Review, which is the online successor to Open Letters Monthly. In addition to that, I am also the book section editor for a print newspaper, for Smoke Signals, for Big Canoe News in northern Georgia. They have a dedicated 2-page book section. Most newspapers don't have that. And I'm the editor of that section. And one of my dreams, I've had a couple of dreams when it comes to Big Canoe. I would like to double or triple our subscription. That would be great. Our circulation needs to be improved. It's a small circulation. That's one thing. Another thing would be to win awards. My book section won an award this year. A local Georgia Press Award, but still, not everybody got it. It wasn't just a participation trophy. And The third thing, and I admit the thing that means the most to me, is to see a Big Canoe blurb on a book. And I've heard a rumor that is going to happen. I don't know that I'm going to get that paperback to see one way or another this year. It might be next year. The Soviet Century, nonfiction work from 2023 that I love. I think it's just magnificent. I'm due for a reread before the end of the year. Rumor has it that I am blurbed on that for Big Canoe, which would be thrilling. That would be thrilling. That would be in this video if I made this next year. Then there are gifts. Of course, another print and paper thing that you will treasure will be gifts. I don't think that will ever happen with ebooks. Even if you send somebody an ebook file, it doesn't feel the same at all. It's the physical objectness of the print book that makes it feel that way. And I've received a lot of gifts, of book gifts, in the course of my lifetime. Quite a few of the books in the background of just this setting are gifts. Like, for instance, this. This actually is a 2-in-1 because this is also a wonderful format. This is a Penguin Classic Deluxe edition of the Anthony Briggs translation of War and Peace. And these Penguin Classic Deluxe editions are lovely. They've got the deckled edges and the French flaps. They really are nice editions. And this was given to me as a gift. So it has the two things going for it that won't work in ebooks. There's no such thing as a deluxe ebook, really. There should be by now, but there never will be. The market didn't pursue it. So a deluxe ebook that is a work of art on its own, like this thing, will never happen now. And also getting an ebook as a gift from somebody. First of all, a normal ebook that you buy from Amazon or Barnes & Noble or Kobo, you can't give to somebody. But if you've got a file, if you've got a book file, you could send it to someone as an attachment on an email. It wouldn't feel the same as something like this. So that I treasure as well. And then, there's also the lavishness of the edition, which doesn't really work for me. Usually that doesn't really work for me because I'm really rough on my books. I try not to be, but some people collect Folio Society editions or things like that. Editions that are just physically gorgeous. They are works of art on their own. And I appreciate those things, but I usually don't get them because I know they stand a good chance of just not reaching a good home. In the video here, right up there next to Oblomov, you can see a couple of the deluxe illustrated Tolkien editions. There's the Silmarillion and the Untold Tales up there. Those are very pretty things that have managed to survive. Also over here, you see the Barnes & Noble leather-bound edition of the Foundation books by Isaac Asimov. That has managed, actually a lovely volume, and it has managed to survive, so I can do it. But then when it comes to things like that, there's another Barnes & Noble edition that may very well be the nicest thing they've ever done. And it's their version of the King James Bible. This thing, with this intaglio all over, just this gorgeous, gorgeous thing, with the gilt spray there, and it's got a cloth bookmark built in, and in addition to that, it's got all of Gustave Doré's illustrations. Oftentimes with King James Bibles, you'll get one Gustave Doré illustration. You'll get usually the very first one that he did to open the story. let's see if we can get to that. That is usually the beginning of it, and this has them all. I wrote about this when it came out. I sang its praises. I was overjoyed that Barnes & Noble had made such a thing. It is absolutely lovely, and it's fairly solid. The original run of these Barnes & Noble faux leather-bound editions were really solid books. This can take some punishment. Some of their later gift editions are a little bit shabbier. I don't think that this intaglio would rub off quite as easy as some of their later ones would. But this thing, a joy. It's a joy to read through, even though it's a poster child for all the things that print books do poorly. This is a really inhospitable object. It really, really is. It's dangerous, first of all. If you pull this off the shelf and you're not holding on to it really tightly and it falls, it could hurt you. If it fell on your foot, it could hurt you. If it fell on a small animal, it could hurt them. It's a heavy object, 5 pounds. I forget where I was, because that's the 50th rescue vehicle in the last 10 minutes. for a non-existent emergency. I should stress that again. When they intrude on any video, I should always stress to you softies out there, there is no emergency. That is not an emergency. Someone's house is not burning. That is all false alarm. What was I saying? Oh, yes. Okay, this thing. And also, this doesn't have any critical apparatus at all. It's just the King James Bible. And it takes up space. It needs to be cleaned. It will deteriorate over time anyway, even if I'm good with it. So it's a poster child for the reason why I prefer ebooks. For the reason why I do. I make no bones about that. But still, I do love my print and paper books. So when I saw Mystery and Mayhem sort of make his video, it's delightful to watch. First of all, anybody's collection. He has a wonderful book collection. And I bet you do too. Feel free to show me some print and paper books that you love, whether you love e-reading or not. I'd love to see them. I'll leave a link to his channel down below. It's worth your time to go and subscribe. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up and put these books back on the shelves where they belong. I'm going to put them back on the shelves where they belong, which involves picking up each one of them and finding out where they went. Does it still fit back there? You know what happens when I want to put a book back where it belongs here? Nothing, because I'm reading it where it belongs. I'm reading it where it belongs. So when I'm done, I just say, done, bye, and it is where it belongs. But these things, they're worth the effort, so I will lug this thing over and put it on the shelf where it belongs. But anyway, I'm going to go do that now. But I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.